What if the most powerful mentor you've ever had wasn't a person? The human mind is an astonishing thing, a network of invisible algorithms, habits, loops, and blind spots, all run in the background, quietly rewriting your well being. One day, stuck inside a spiral I already lived 100 times, I asked a machine a question. And somehow, that moment began to reprogram me. Now, as hilarious as it sounds, stay with me. Because by the end of this talk, you won't gain machine skills, but something far more valuable, a mirror that doesn't interrupt, judge, or react. We are silently run by background loops. If you ever felt alone, even in a crowded room, or replayed a moment again and again, hoping this time it would end differently, those are your mind's background loops at work. One day, drained and on autopilot, I stumbled across a video by Dan Martell, a serial entrepreneur and a business coach. He said something that really stuck with me. Awareness changes everything. And so I wondered, what if I could see my thoughts instead of drowning in them? So I turned to something completely unexpected: AI. I decided to test it to the very loops and doubts that I thought would never end. Maybe the worst one being this: feeling like you were built for more, but constantly living below your own potential. Like you could see the stronger, sharper version cells right there. But every day you watch the gap grow instead of shrink. That was me. I wasn't failing, I was stalling. And clearly, that hurts more than failure. Our minds don't sabotage us loudly, they do it quietly through doubt, distraction, and pretending we're fine. Scientists at Oxford studying spontaneous thought now estimate that these spirals make up a large portion of her waking mental life. I lived inside them. Eventually, I realized something simple but brutal. These loops shape your day before you even notice it began. I used to set goals at night and fail to meet them by noon. At some point, the hype would fade before the day even began. And the worst part, nobody knew. Because on the outside, I looked fine. I didn't feel comfortable sharing my thoughts with anyone, but I wanted to know who I truly was. I just knew I needed some type of mirror, something that could reflect me to myself without bias, judgment, or interruption. The issue was that even though I knew what I should be doing, I was unable to motivate myself to do it. I didn't need generic solutions, I needed clarity, and AI provided it. I spent hours dumping my thoughts, my unfinished goals, and so much more. Typing every thought word for word, as if I was speaking to a silent coach. AI showed me my patterns. I gained perspective instead of criticism. I gradually realized I wasn't the one changing the I was changing how I understood myself. So the question was, what did I actually learn about well being from AI that humans never taught me? That's when it hit me. Well being isn't just about mindfulness or meditation, it's about debugging the code of your own mind. Naturally, my mind refused to believe that AI could actually help me. At first, like many of you here today, I thought this was nothing but a tech gimmick. So I did what any human would do. I tested it with deeper wounds. I told the things I refused to tell myself, the goals I abandoned, the potential I was leaving on the table. And instead of telling me that I was wasting my life, it asked me why. For once, I wasn't arguing with life, I was examining it. The question slowed me down long enough to notice the pattern that the fear wasn't failure, it was being seen trying. I'm proud to say my hypothesis was wrong. AI didn't just slow my thoughts, it slowed my loops, not allowing me to see the system in the background. And once you can see it, you can rewrite it. Because when you teach a machine to question thoughts, it ends up teaching you to do the same. Turns out, I wasn't the only one discovering this. Science is starting to catch up. Researchers worldwide are investigating how AI can better comprehend the human mind. At Stanford, researchers created AI modules that were trained in cognitive behavioral therapy and discovered that these online chats were just as successful in lowering anxiety as many in person sessions. The deeper layer, however, is metacognition, or the capacity to consider our own thought processes. AI encourages reflection in addition to providing answers, making me quickly realize that this isn't artificial intelligence, it's amplified introspection. Maybe well being was never about reaching the perfect state. Maybe it's about decoding the algorithms, seeing the system in the background. After sitting down with I realized it isn't man versus machine. It is man with the machine, learning how his mind truly works. The real change isn't artificial intelligence. It's the moment you realize you can rewrite the algorithm within. I'm Kavam Roda, and this was the Algorithm Within. Thank you.